I'm going to be talking to you guys today about 3 shows that I feel are very slowly reinventing animated comedy. Now when I say animated comedy, I'm not talking about shows for children, I'm talking about shows aimed at adults. So I'm of course talking about BoJack Horseman, F is for Family and Big Mouth. But before we delve into that, let's establish what came before, what defined animated comedy. So the obvious, I mean there's a lot of shows, but the obvious heavyweights, kind of the recent predecessors, are Family Guy and South Park. They've both defined parts of my teenage years. I watched them both growing up and found them both hilarious. So as much as it might sound as I'm going to be criticising the shows, please don't take it to heart if you're a big fan, because I did love and watch these shows when I was of that age, anywhere between kind of 12 to 16, that sort of age group. So evidently the viewership has dropped significantly over the years. Back in the day, Family Guy was chaotic brilliance and full of absurd humour. South Park was wonderfully offensive with brutal satire of society and celebrity culture, and it is completely self-aware of its preachy tone, and it plays off that. In the wake of these shows slipping into the void, Netflix has been quietly reinventing the genre to delight critics and fans alike. But none of these shows have dominated culture like how South Park and Family Guy did back when they were their most popular. It didn't matter where you were, out in the shops, at a fun fair or something like that. You'd have massive like Stewie or Brian plushies, the DVDs, you'd see people in t-shirts. It was everywhere. So let's talk about the first. This is arguably my favourite. This is the one that I watched the earliest out of these 3 shows. I saw it back when it started, and it's none other than BoJack Horseman. So the show is about anthropomorphic animals designed in bright colours, and it's actually, ironically, one of the most accurate depictions of mental health, anxiety, depression, the lot of it. And it's a cartoon with animals. So Netflix has been under fire recently for their depictions of mental health. You have 13 Reasons Why, which was massively criticised for almost glamorising suicide and mental health. And I've never seen the show, I'm just going off what I've read, and I know that they did come under a lot of fire for that via critics and people on social media. However, this is not the case with BoJack Horseman. One episode that instantly springs to mind is called Stupid Piece of Shit. Yeah, literally, it's there in the title. Surrounded by family, the protagonist, BoJack, spirals into self-loathing. He narrates what he wants to do, how he wants to be better, but he cannot. He still does all the actions that he hates himself for, and in turn letting those down around him. So let's talk about BoJack himself. He's a washed up actor from the 90s who had a very popular sitcom, and now he's kind of got nothing left, and it's him trying to kind of pick up the pieces of his life and put something together. He drinks a lot. He doesn't really have many emotional attachments to people, yet he does at the same time. It's a very, very interesting dichotomy there. What I love about the show is that it's not afraid of portraying its protagonist in a negative light. So some of BoJack's actions amongst the humour are extremely condemning. He almost becomes a sex offender by sleeping with a minor or strangling a co-star on the set, Gina. It's moments like this that portray BoJack in an unyielding and negative light, touching on the Me Too movement and BoJack being on the wrong side of all of it. All of the characters, including BoJack, are fallible. They have flaws and broken dreams, etc. You've got Aaron Paul's Todd, who wastes his time on ridiculous escapades. I know he's quite a fan favourite and everyone seems to find him adorable and wonderful, and when to me, I think a lot of his actions end up causing massive consequence on others, and he always seems to walk away scot-free with a smile on his face, whether that be blissful ignorance or I don't know. You've got other characters like Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter, who kind of their marriage just falls apart because they're just completely incompatible. They try to force each other's kind of personalities on each other, one being extremely outgoing and one not. Then we've got Princess Carolyn, who is an angel, we wouldn't be criticising Princess Carolyn because she deserves happiness. No, but seriously, all the characters are criticised in one way or another, and it's a really accurate representation of, as I've said before, of what life is like. And it also critiques kind of Hollywood and celebrity culture, similar to kind of what South Park does it, but it does it in a more accurate and less over-the-top preachy style. And I'm not saying that South Park were bad for doing that, because it was an extremely funny thing back in the day. As you can see from what it got on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, the show is held in really high regard. And on that note, let's move on to the next show. So the next show I'm going to be talking about is the one I actually saw most recently. I don't know why I didn't see it sooner, but I found it really quite enjoyable. Personally, didn't hit the heights of what BoJack did for me, but it was still a really good show, and that is F is for Family. And it follows BoJack in terms of an honest depiction, which that was an honest depiction of celebrity culture in Hollywood. This is an honest depiction of suburban American life in the 70s. Frank Murphy, the main character, he berates his family on a daily basis, which again on the surface is, a lot of it is really funny. And then sometimes he'll say something or behave in a certain way, you go, ooh, that's of the time. And that's why it's a really good satire of the 70s, because you might make a homophobic comment, a racist comment, a sexist comment, and you go, that's not really appropriate, is it? And it's that distancing. You don't just love the protagonist like you do in something like Family Guy, because he's always funny, it's silly, there are ramifications for the things that people say. So going a bit more in depth to what I was saying about Frank, so in terms of like the sexism, he dislikes his wife Sue's success and her working, especially when they come under financial strain, which I think is when that whole arc happens, the financial arc. It's a really good depiction of the American dream is this unreachable achievement that a lot of Americans still strive for, but particularly back in kind of 60s, 70s, people still wanted to gun for that, and it was just near impossible. He also squanders his daughter Maureen. Whenever she shows any kind of interest throughout the show, she's shown to be incredibly intelligent. She gets like the highest scores in class. She wants to dress up as certain things at Halloween, though it might not be associated with a woman back then. And he kind of conforms to these societal norms and tries to make her more, I guess, feminine. And it's moments like that again where we go, hang on a minute, you shouldn't be doing that. Again, going into the homophobic aspect, he calls his son a fairy, which might not seem like much, but that is used as an offensive term for gay people now. And so on. It also something it really delves into is kind of almost like the toxic masculinity with Frank's ideals, but also not just him, but a character who comes in much later called Chet, and the way he controls and abuses his wife. This is why it's relevant and why I think it's very good. Like BoJack, it really plays on problems and portrays them in a way that isn't too comical. There is a lot of comedy, but it brings about a lot of questioning with it. Going even deeper, it really scrutinises the 70s. I mean, we think of like rock stars, sex, drugs, all of that. But in truth, it was Frank, a hard-working man. As much as it sounds like I've just been berating him, he's got a lot of great qualities. He's a very hard-working man. He tries his best to provide for his family. He ends up taking on a job which a lot of people would really turn their nose up at. And again, it's this reaching for that American ideal, when in fact all he's trying to do is put food on the table for his family. And I think, again, it's a very real man. Of course, it's all elevated. All of these shows are elevated. There are, you know, the humour and a lot of these situations won't happen in real life. But it isn't all doom and gloom, because there are some really hilarious moments in this show. The cast, the main cast, the family themselves, just watching them argue and battle over everything is hilarious. And then you've got a brilliant kind of side cast. You've got all these characters in the neighbourhood around them that make up this really almost over the top but believable environment. Like BoJack, we follow a story. There are no circular episodes, and there is progression. Life goes forward, which you didn't get in these previous shows. Finally, let's talk about Big Mouth. So this is far more so an out-and-out comedy, kind of similar to Family Guy, with a lot of the outlandish humour, the outrageousness, the absurdity to a lot of the events. And similar to South Park, does this show go for the shock factor? Oh my god, does it have the shock factor? Some moments make for none other than incredibly uncomfortable viewing, to be honest. So it follows a series of children who are beginning to undergo adolescence and come to grips with a whole plethora of kind of like new feelings, and even discovering kind of who they are, their true identities. Now, the show is very funny. A great deal of the humour comes from the hormone monsters, the outrageously offensive and perverse Maury, and the sassy and more so fierce monstress Connie. The monsters humanise the adolescent feelings, and the idea is that they leave when puberty is complete, in most cases. Another character that I loved was the Shame Wizard, played by Professor Lupin from Harry Potter. Shame is an untold part of puberty, particularly when, as a child, you don't fully understand what is going on. So seeing almost like a manifestation of that in your ear, kind of telling you off for feeling this, thinking that, I thought was really funny. The main bunch of characters are elevated but believable young people. They're going through adolescence at different rates, making it quite realistic, some more quickly, some more slow. Some of the events they go through are exaggerated for sure. The show can go from elevated realism to outrageous absurdity, but the crux of it all is how Big Mouth doesn't hide away from the difficulties that puberty can pose to young people. It's as if they make everything so silly that it subdues our own feelings and memories of the topic ourselves. Starting to notice a trend here. These shows, so Big Mouth, like BoJack, like F is for Family, they follow a narrative. Gone are the days of the circular episodic cycle and income stories with elements and consequence. So, like BoJack, in the midst of the Me Too movement, characters are chastised for inappropriate behaviour in this show. In the final moments of the second season, Andrew, who we've come to like generally, we follow him. He's arguably, him and Nick are the protagonists of the show that we spent the most time with, and he's actually shown as a possessive, nasty piece of work, to be quite honest, toward the end of the season, accusing a disabled boy that he can walk, full of jealousy, that Missy, his ex and crush, is giving this disabled boy more attention than him. He starts screaming, you're mine, we're meant to be together. It connotes an underlying dark tone amongst the humour, something that all three of the shows do. And I think one moment in particular that needs to be mentioned in Big Mouth, amongst all of the mental humour, the absurdness of everything, is the Freddie Mercury scene. That is definitely a highlight. Really funny, brilliant impression as well. All in all, what I'm trying to get across here is that it isn't humour for the sake of humour. Although South Park and occasionally Family Guy had an important message to their episode, it was often made reductive with the humour, whereas the more important tones in these three shows drives it forward. The humour comes after. The reason such content is put into the animated format is to, one, be able to still do lots of silly things that would cost serious money in real life, but also that these serious scenarios and emotions are placed in settings where we're comfortable with it because cartoons are relatable to childhood, softening the intensity. So yeah, this has been a bit of a ramble. I've not gone into the shows in too much depth. I just think watch them. I don't want to spoil anything. Watch the shows and tell me what you think. Have a little discussion down below. We had quite a good discussion in the last, one of my older videos about the OA, which I've got another video coming soon, like season 3 theories for that. So yeah, stick around, like, subscribe, all of that crap, and yeah, cheers guys, see you later.